Hey everybody, JB here, and welcome back to more JoshL6. We are on level 21, Quilt Home, and yeah, let's go and get started with this one. So what I remember of this level, because I played this one before, obviously, with the time up there, is that it has, whoops, I forgot to turn the volume back. There we go. It has all these different paths, and you get chips on them, and I want to say that there was even like a couple of loops. In other words, you can circle back around like that. And it seems to be a fairly short level too, in the sense that the necessary paths are really not um, all that many. Words are failing me today, apparently. There's also all these middle things where there's walls, and you don't have to really worry about those. So yeah, this is an ice maze. Ice mazes, it's funny. I feel like those were like the levels that I made as a little kid. And I usually had this layout where I would actually have all kinds of death traps all over the place. I don't know why I liked ice mazes so much. I think it was just because there were so many of them in CC1 that they felt like a really fun thing to build. And the funny thing was is that I actually wouldn't build the maze first. I'd start with the field of ice and just build the maze in there, which always felt a little funny to me now that I look back on it. Okay, so it's somewhere here. I'm trying to see where that dirt leads. Okay, it's up there. So it's the second one from the bottom right going up. This one. There we go. Okay. So that was pretty easy. Alright, so 57 seconds behind the previous time. Oh, Zephyr Heights. Okay, so I have a kind of a funny story behind this. I think I told you part of the story back in CCLP4 when I let's played this level, but I think it's this section right here. There was like a force floor removed from this, and I had optimized this level in the set, as you can see by the timer, back in the day, and it was actually one of, probably in my opinion, one of the most memorable optimization experiences I had, where I got to do it in an airport, and I was waiting for a flight and stuff, and I was like, you know, it would be cool, let's just optimize some CC stuff, and I was working on this set at the time, and thought, hey, you know, why not? So I optimized this level, and it ended up being surprisingly specific as far as the things you needed to do in order to get the bold time that I got, which is 4:17 in this case. And I think 15 seconds were ultimately removed for the CCLP4 level. Or either that or Josh removed them himself. But at any rate, I was very happy with this route, right? And then CCLP4 gets released, and I completely forget that Josh modified the level to remove that one force floor, and that force floor ended up throwing off the entire route. Like, no joke, the entire route was ruined because of that one thing. And I think it all had to do with like timing in the opening area or something. It was something really bizarre. But okay, what am I missing? I know it's like in the upper area, isn't it? I think I've left one path unexplored. Here it is. It's this. But yeah, this was surprisingly really okay. Yeah, this one too. It was surprisingly difficult to come up with a new route, but I feel like I ended up coming up with like an equal route. Oh, wow. You know what? I'm not gonna cheat and show you the solution. I'm gonna play through this properly. I was tempted to show you the solution to this version, but I'm not gonna do that. But yeah, I was so bummed out when I discovered that, because I was like, man, all my airport work, and now I can't even use that route anymore. There we go. That's how we do that. So I need to remember to go through that once I get the green key, which I'll do here pretty soon. Yeah, I don't think that's unfair or anything. I'm kind of surprised I got changed, but maybe enough people complained about it. It's interesting what people complain about when it comes to levels and stuff. Speaking of which, so I feel like this Let's Play has been turning into kind of a level design forum monologue series of sorts. I don't know what to call it, but there's been this ongoing discussion that I've kind of been a part of on the Discord server, the CC Discord server, about difficulty and what kinds of difficulty are reasonable. And this kind of ties into some of the things. I think a lot of the videos I had made before in this, well, by a lot I mean two, in this series kind of inspired them. And basically, I kind of wanted to address some of the things that I currently hold as far as like what I believe is reasonable for difficulty while I'm doing this, because they tie into some of the statements I made in the last couple of videos, and I completely missed that. I think that's the green key. Yeah, there we go. So, where should I start with this? I think the best way to put it is, I feel like there's something, and I call this something the CCLP3 effect, which is kind of a little unfair to CCLP3, because I feel like we pick on it for being difficult a lot in the Chips Challenge world. But I'll try to explain kind of where I'm coming from on this one. Wait, maybe that was what was removed, that ship there. Was that what was changed? I'm trying to remember now. Anyway, let me paint for you a picture of where everything was at during CCLP3, because I realize not everyone watching was around at that point, and I feel like it's helpful context for just understanding where the community was and what some of the dynamics were that were playing into everything and all that. So there were a couple different things I think were going on. One of them was something that I alluded to in the last video, which was PyGuy's site. But in order to understand why PyGuy's site is so impactful, I need to explain what exactly it was about it that was special and why it made such a splash, if you will, on the CC community of that time. Ooh, this is that Walker level. I remember this one. Alright, so just get the chips and then use some blocks to exit. Got it. So the best way I can describe it is that the scorekeeping landscape of CC at that time was really awkward. And this is something I haven't really talked about before, but I feel like I should probably mention it here because it's a big part of what led to this. So around 2001, I want to say it was. This was before I even joined the CC community. I was kind of a lurker at that time on the news group, the Usenet group that existed for Chips Challenge. And one of the things that happened was that I think it was Ruben Spawns, who used to be the scorekeeper, stepped down, I want to say, from that role. And I forget exactly the circumstances, but basically a new scorekeeper was installed. And it was only one person doing all this. But I remember that the score updates were very infrequent, and like maybe twice a year, if not once a year. Now, if you think the scores don't get updated on time now, just imagine what it was like back then, because it was not very fun to have to wait that long to see your new record come up on the scoreboard. That was pretty decent, I guess. Walker levels are so hard. I don't know. I wasn't the biggest fan of how cramped that one felt, but I get what Josh was going for, and I appreciate the effort. It was a good attempt at a Walker level. So anyway, there was another person in the CC community in that situation, in the wake of all that, named Jimmy Vermeer, who stepped up and said, hey, you know, I can host an unofficial score site on my GeoCities page, or Geocities, or whatever you call that website that pretty much is dead now. And, you know, you guys can report your scores, and I will post them here, and everything will be fine. So at the very least, it was an archive of everything that was happening in case we actually started updating the site more regularly. And that way, whenever the real score updates were posted, we could have that as a reference, basically. Everything was very formal back then, much more so than it is today. So, anyway, long story short, Jimmy started this GeoCities page, and it was received with a lot of praise just because it addressed a lot of the... Did I push that there? I guess I did. So it was received with a lot of warm reception, just because it was filling this hole that was left open for so long. But then, in addition to CC1 and CCLP2, which were the two main sets that were out at the time, there was the the fact that there were also custom levels that were being released. And Jimmy decided to post his scores on these custom levels in their own pages. He didn't really have the desire to like track every person's scores, but he did say what his score was and what the bold time was, so if anyone wanted to try to match or beat or set new records relative to his times, they could. So anyway, this was going pretty well. And then we had Pie Guy come along, and Pie Guy introduced something that was very revolutionary to the CC community of that day, which was an automated scorekeeping site and level upload site. And this was just bonkers to think about, because essentially what this meant is that you can upload a CC level set to this site, and you could basically... Okay, hang on a sec. There we go. You could essentially get your own scoreboard without anyone actually coding it or doing anything like that. It was all automated. That was a really cool room. I like that room. And this was huge. Like, nothing like this had been seen before. So, I'm just trying to say why that this was such a big deal at the time. I really like that room. That was neat. So, people started uploading their sets in droves on this site, but the big thing about it that was a little bit of a caveat was what I mentioned last time, where you basically had to make sure that you couldn't reorder any of the levels in the sets that you were uploading. So there were a couple different models for set release on Pie Guy's site, and I feel like most people went with the latter. I forgot that bug was there, and I panicked and I ran back. And I feel like most people went with the latter of these two that I'm about to explain here. The first one is that you finish a set and you basically upload it to the site, and it's done. You've thoroughly tested it, and this was basically what Pie Guy did. And yeah, there can be occasional bug fixes or things like that that are fairly minor, but other than that, everything is pretty straightforward. And then you have the other model, which is that you release sets with like one level at a time onto the site, and you just add levels as you have more of them, and so you can't really reorder them because of that. This is what I think most people did, and this is certainly what I did when I released my set JoshL6, which got up to like 101 levels. And I have to say, I think this encouraged something that really resonated in the way CCLP3 was voted on, and I'll try to explain what I mean by that. I talked a little bit last time about this, but you can kind of see how it plays out here, and it's not specific to CC, it's something that can be seen in other games too, and I'll make a couple of comparisons here that I think you might find interesting. One of these games is a game called Escape, which I've talked about before. It's a puzzle game like Chips Challenge in that it's a tile-based game, but it has something that's very different than Chips Challenge, two somethings actually. It's a turn-based game. In other words, it's something where every move you make is at your own pace and you can undo. And then the other thing is that it has no official like arc. There's no official levels, anything like that. It's all basically just individual levels that you play. And I think the reason why I find this significant is that I feel like a lot of CC players of that era, of the Pie Guy era as I'm calling it, treated Chips Challenge like they treated Escape. It was a game to play where you had these individual levels, and this thing called CCLP3 was far off and away in the distance on the horizon, and it was kind of a bit of an unknown whether or not it would ever see the light of day. Because also at that point, there was a staff that didn't quite exist, and everyone was kind of wondering, okay, what exactly is going on? Will we ever see this level set, right? So I think a lot of people were just kind of content, not totally content, but at least somewhat content with this model of, hey, let's just play levels on PyGuy's site and call it good. And, you know, whatever happens, happens. And hopefully one day we'll get a full-blown 149 level pack. But if not, we'll have this to fall back on. But at the same time, if we do get a full-blown 149 level pack, then we need to make sure that that set is amazing. Like, it needs to be absolutely fantastic. No room for... Okay, where in the world do I get blocks for that water section? Don't tell me I was supposed to save some of the blocks in that ballroom. That would be kind of sucky. I'm a little worried about this now. Oh, wait a minute. I have fire boots. Can I do things here that are cool? Okay, I don't want to lock myself into that, so... Okay, I feel like I'm missing something here. What am I not seeing? The thing is that if I did use blocks, I think I would need multiple ones, right? Oh, yeah. Okay, I feel like there has to be flippers around somewhere. Let's just look around here for now. Okay, nothing there. I'll get back to the CCLP3 thoughts here in a minute. Don't tell me that there's like a hidden flipper up here in this room. Is that what's going on? I feel like Josh wouldn't do that, but who knows? Okay. Let's just find this real quick. It's not in this bug area, is it? I feel like we looked at everything here, unless it's under a block here and I've missed it. No? Oh, wait, I can take these blocks out. Derp. Okay. That makes way more sense. And I take it I go across on this row? Yeah, okay. Alright, back to our regularly scheduled monologue type thing here. So yeah, CCLP3, I feel like had this very weighty expectation around it that everything had to be so good in terms of longevity that harder levels were going to be prioritized more. And then on top of that, there's also this added dynamic of the game itself being kind of explored to what I think a lot of people at that time perceived to be its maximum potential. A lot of people had documented and fully explored a lot of the bugs in MS rule set CC, at least. I wouldn't say the same for Lynx, because that was just a burgeoning thing at that point. That was a decent level. I mean, it's kind of a... I don't know. I feel like it's a very themeless variety level, which I feel like is kind of my issue with the set in general that I had back when it originally released. So I'm sorry if that's going to become kind of like a repeating word or phrase here, but I did like the way it played. I just kind of wish it stood out more. Oh, Holiday Trail. This is a fun one. There are many red keys around this trail, but be careful as you need at least 6 to exit. All blue walls are fake. Happy collecting. I think this was entered in a crate competition or a time trial competition or something. Anyway, I can't remember. Is there a green key in this? There has to be, because there's some toward the exit. I don't know if you can get it now, but I'd be curious to see if that's possible. I want to say you have to wait till you get all the chips. Yeah, you do. Okay, good to know. So, yeah, CCLP3 had this big set of expectations around it, and not necessarily for the better. And I think because there were so many people who were, like, meta playing the game on that level, where it was all about, you know, how much can I exploit bug-wise, and how much can I do with the editor and all that. it was common practice at that time to play levels using the editor. Like that was a kind of an everyday thing for a lot of people in that era. So we had designers like or Madhav, I'm not sure how you pronounce it exactly, who tried to make levels, I believe, that were specifically designed to essentially go against that trend. And I think he even mentioned on one occasion that he was specifically trying to do that. He was trying to make levels that you couldn't just pop open in the editor and figure out the solution. Now, it also didn't help at that point that level design was not quite as refined as it is today. So I won't deny that that was a part of what was going on. But, you had this whole dynamic where people would try to get as much juice out of the game as they could. And so I felt like the level set that was produced at that time, CCLP3, reflected that. And then I think after that point we had the new dynamic that was created when Let's Playing entered the equation. So I'm going to address that in a minute, but before I get on to that, I wanted to talk about the difficulty of CCLP3 and what I think a lot of people were really kind of a little bit unsettled with when it came to playing through the set. On average, I don't necessarily think that the set itself as a whole, if you were to take most of the levels, is like excruciatingly difficult. I don't actually think that it's that hard, but the one thing I will say about it that I think really upset a lot of people is that there's two things. One of them has to do with that Let's Playing dynamic, and that is that at the end there are just so many long levels that are difficult that the momentum of playing the game slows down to this crawl, and it becomes a lot less fun to play as a result. Absolutely love this level. I still want to see this in an official set. I think it's a fun collecting level. Smoke in a non-smoking area. I think this is a maze, so I feel better about continuing with this. So yeah, the momentum issue was definitely a big one, where it's like if you get stuck on one of these levels, it can really trip up the feeling of progress that you are experiencing when you're playing through a game and you want to keep going. So that's one thing. The other thing was that I feel like the very late levels, especially the ones that a lot of people point to, that being Old Frog, Same Game, and Avalanche, and I kind of exclude Same Game from this for a reason I'll talk about here in a minute, but those levels, I feel like a lot of people are not necessarily big fans of because the solving experience is very much like on a meta level, and it's a weird thing to try to say in like 2 words, so let me try to break that down here in a few minutes. I think the fun of Chip's Challenge, and I'm going back to my comparison of Escape here, which is a turn-based game, so this is where I'm coming back to this. The fun of Chip's Challenge is that it's not a turn-based puzzle game. It is a real-time game where there's a time limit and there are monsters that you have to react to, and there's all kinds of things going on. And yes, you can port very difficult puzzles that are normally reserved for a turn-based game like Escape to CC. In fact, Pie Guy, fun fact, ported some of his really difficult puzzles, among them the Wrong Parody and Modulo 14, to Escape, which I thought was really interesting. And I'm glad he did, because I think those kinds of levels are more appropriate for a game like that. But CC has this element of a time limit and no undo. And so, in a lot of ways, the experience of solving a level, in my opinion, needs to take that into account. And when it doesn't, it's very jarring. And I think this is what a lot of people were upset about with CCLP3, is that these levels toward the end, it's not just that they were long and that they broke the momentum, it's also that a lot of them, it took more to solve them than what most people did in-game, if that makes sense. Most people played the game and expected to be able to solve levels in there, not have to break open the editor or a pencil and paper or something like that and solve the level there. So you kind of see what I mean. It's one of those things where it's like what's being demanded of you is at odds with what the game is about. Now, there's another game, I promised a second comparison here a few minutes ago, that I think you can kind of make sort of a comparison to on a sort of a micro versus macro level. And this is a dynamic that I think started to really surface after CCLP3 came out, and that is the idea of level sets, and specifically how this evolved in the game Super Mario Maker. So I have not actually played Super Mario Maker, so I'm kind of just going off of what I've seen on the internet versus, with people's Let's Plays and whatnot. But Super Mario Maker has had a bit of an interesting history in its short time that it's been released. And one of the things I find fascinating about it is that it started off as this thing where people created individual levels for download and sharing on the Nintendo Miiverse, whatever the thing was called, that platform. So at first it began as this thing where you could just craft one level and you're done. You're completely finished with it and you can share it. No big deal, right? But I've noticed something very interesting with Super Mario Maker 2, and that is that now they have this world builder thing where you can basically take levels that you've built and you can string them together in a world like a real Mario game, and you can play that as an experience. And I feel like CC went through this sort of renaissance where this sort of difficulty curve thing, which we talked about in the last video, became known. And I get the impression that the CCLPs that have been crafted since this point have kind of reflected this this awareness. And I think there's been a bit of a hypersensitivity in some ways ever since CCLP3's lack of awareness when it came to that, you could call it. And I know I've been saying a lot of negative things about CCLP3 here, but I do say this under the disclaimer. Oh, I have 0 chips left. I will say I'm not as big a fan of that level as I am of Cold Fusion Reactor from CCLP4, but I do like what it's doing. I was kind of a bit down on it during CCLP4 voting, but I'm actually more open to it being in CCLP5 now that I've played Cold Fusion Reactor more. So I liked that one. That was decent. I enjoyed playing through that again. It was fun. Yeah, I might be open to giving this like a 3 or a 4 in CCLP5 voting. Anyway, where was I on this? That's right. So all this stuff ties into the momentum, issue that we were discussing a few minutes ago. It's all a part of that in a lot of ways. And I'm trying to remember how to... Wait. I feel like I've already messed this up. Well, no, I'm forced to do this. And I'm forced to do that. Is there a key? No, there's no key there. So I'm trying to get to that area up there. Oh, here, I can do this. That is a really cool puzzle. I like that. That's neat. Okay, this one looks a lot easier. Man, I love the splash noise in Tile World. It's pretty awesome. We have to do this, don't we? Yeah. Anyway, when it comes to this ongoing question about difficulty in CCLP5 and all this stuff, I guess what I come back to are a couple things. One of them is that, first of all, is the level reasonable to solve in-game? This is a question that I think is worthwhile to consider before making levels, just because if you are a designer and you are able to easily solve the level, especially not in-game, or because you know what the solution is... hang on a sec. I feel like I messed this up. Let's go here, because I know I can at least do stuff here. Okay, good. I was a little concerned about that. Okay. I mean, all I have to do is push this... oh, wait, no. So I don't want to push that right exactly. I like this puzzle. I'm not sure exactly how to solve it yet, but I'm enjoying it. I think I just have to push this to the right and then send, or push this to the left. Or wait, no, because that's just going to go reverse and come back up here and then get destroyed. So that's not really going to work. Uh, how do I get you down such that... Oh, wait, I can just push this down and then right. Right, okay. Okay, there we go. That's what I need to do. So yeah, I encourage people not to fall into the CCLP3 effect again, because I feel like that's going to be the natural tendency now that we're in another phase of raising, so to speak, a new crop of veterans and having more people get more comfortable with the game overall and stuff. And so I think it's going to be very natural to want to make everything ultra difficult or make it such that, you know, you really do need to spend a few days working on a level and stuff like that. Now, that being said, I do think that we're in a better position design-wise than we were in CCLP3. And I think as a result of that, we're probably going to have a lot more sensitivity to what exactly it is that might be too difficult, especially as we continue to specifically identify these kinds of things that may not necessarily be the best in terms of design. Okay, there's nothing under that. And I'm not saying that, you know, it's a hard and fast thing all the time, but I do think there's some things that, you know, we can look at and be like, okay, this might not be the best for X reason, right? Oh, I didn't realize that faced right. Okay, that's a little unfortunate. I should have known something was up when the block was there, but oh well. So yeah, there's that. But I say all that with the caveat that I think CCLP5, on average, has the potential to be harder than CCLP. I just noticed something. I'll talk about it in a sec. It has the potential to be harder, I think, on average than CCLP 3. And I think the reason for that is just not only the pool of levels, but how much people, I think, are more sensitive today to the idea of scaling levels. So this is something I haven't talked a lot about, but it is something that I think is really interesting, and that is this idea of scalability, where, okay, am I supposed to, like, push this here and then do this? Okay, I'm going to assume that was correct, because I don't see any other method. Okay, those are hot now. I'm going to assume I have to do this, and then I get all the things out here. I like how each of these rooms feels a little different. It adds a little more flavor to everything. Pretty cool. But yeah, I feel like these days, people are a little bit more aware of the fact that not everything has to be gigantically huge when it comes to CC design. And the reason why I say this is because we just had CC2LP1 come out, and I feel like that set might be one of the more mature ones as far as that kind of awareness goes. Maybe that's... Some people may disagree with that, but I do think that overall, it worked a lot better than a lot of its predecessors in recognizing, hey, here's a hard level, but we're not going to make you, you know, go through an entire 32 by 32 map to get to the solution, you know, and stuff like that. I'm just trying to see, is this the way? I'm going to assume so. Okay, I'm guessing I have to go through all this, right? That would make sense. I don't want to leave that dirt uncover that dirt there. So yeah, I feel like that set really set a new standard in terms of, hey, here is an idea, let's scale this idea properly instead of insisting that we have to use all the space in a level. And I think part of that has to do with the design space and the way it works with CC2 versus CC1. And by that I mean that I think because CC2 has this thing where you start with 10 by 10 and then you can go from there, in some ways I think it makes it easier to restrain yourself more so than CC1, where you start with, oh whoops, I did not mean to do that. You start with 32 by 32, and then it's kind of like, you know, you feel more compelled in some ways, I think, to fill up the map. Like, I think there's just this urge that people feel to just fill space in levels, and it's why I discourage space filling so much when it comes to CC stuff. So all that to say, I think it's gotten better in the CC1 space. I really do. I think it's gotten a lot better. And hang on a sec. What exactly? Oh, wait a minute. I see. So I was right. I need to do this to get you through there, and then I can... I'm assuming this goes down. Okay, good. Make sure there's no dirt. Okay, good. Then we can do this. That was a fun level. I do like that. Other than the little trick in that second room where you couldn't tell what way the ball was facing, I really liked that a lot. Alright, Dungeon Gundam. So a couple of things about this level. I actually saw this in the editor when I was combing through levels, and I saw this first room, and I was really inspired to make a level that had this concept but with pop-up walls involved, and so I made a level called Slide Quest a few days ago, which I'm really excited for people to play. It's a new level in JBLP2. But other than that, Josh mentioned that on the Discord that this level is named after a Pac-Man World 3 level, which I have not played that game. I've played Pac-Man World 2, but not 3, so I hope it's good. I've heard mixed things about it, but I'm excited to play this one again. Make your way across the outer walls and find a way inside the inner compound. Whoa, that was a lot more than I was anticipating there. So yeah, I think that there is a way for the difficulty of CCLP 5 to be more, like, steep as far as a curve goes, but still feel like you're getting your bang for your buck, so to speak, whenever you are in a level and you feel like you went through a solving experience, but not an exhausting one. I don't know how else to describe that, but I'm hoping that this set can achieve that. It can ultimately be something that's more meaty than CCLP 4, which in some ways kind of felt like a more meaty CCLP 1, but at the same time, it has, you know, its own character. It has a bit of more of a challenge to it, but it's a different kind of challenge than 3 gave. So I hope that makes sense. That's kind of where I'm at with everything right now. And I take it I have to go through here. Ooh, this is interesting. That's cool. I like that. Now the tanks are going to stop. So yeah, I normally say, you know, when people ask me about difficulty, make sure, and I think getting help testing levels from other people helps with this a lot. Okay, so it's the bottom of the room. First try. Got it. Okay, I don't know. Oh, okay. That's interesting. Ooh, that's a little treacherous. Am I actually expected to let that teeth go? I'm gonna assume that I can take at least 2 of these blocks, it looks like. Okay, I can put 1 of them there. Let's do that. I'm not gonna let that go yet. I really like this mechanism. That's really neat. Yeah, this level is cool. I do like the way it works. The whole building like going across this little bridge to this other side, that's really neat. I think that works really well. It's a neat challenge. I do like it. So anyway, hope you enjoyed that little thing on difficulty and stuff. Hopefully that wasn't too long. I feel like it took up the whole video because I'm going to be wrapping things up now, but... Alright, that is it for Dungeon Gundam. That was a decent level. I did enjoy that one. Okay, next time we're going to start on Fragments of a Lost Bomb. But until then, thank you all so much for watching and for listening to my ramblings here, and I will see you on the next video. So take care and catch you then.